Greetings everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am Deidre Sully, and welcome to Information with Deidre. Welcome to Information with Deidre. So today is a special broadcast because this is going to be a spinoff of the What Jobs Can I Do in Public Health? And so now this is our first episode of Public Health Careers Spotlight. And our first guest is a travel nurse. Akua Sutherland, RN, is here to share with us some secrets and some tips, some tricks of the trade of her career and her path as an RN. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce, let my guest speak, Mrs. Sutherland. Please tell us about what you do and your profession.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name
You're
is
muted.
Akua. Oh, I'm not muted.
You're still muted.
I don't know what's going on.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
No, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Interesting.
I'm
No.
muted.
I'm going to try to remove you and bring you back. Okay, what about now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. Greetings. Thank you for having me. My name is Akua Sutherland, and I am a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for about 20 years. I started as a licensed vocational nurse and decided to bridge over into the RN program, and I was able to obtain my Associates of Nursing degree. I'm currently back in school to obtain my bachelor's degree, eventually moving on to get a dual master's degree in nursing leadership and an MBA. I specialize in ICU as I'm a critical care nurse, specializing in ICU, where it's a higher level of care, managing patients who are critically ill.
Thank you for that synopsis. So, if you remember, so when we were talking about what jobs you can do in public health, Akua's job, it really is related to public health because it's one of those special positions. Akua is a clinician. RNs are clinicians. And so they are really crossovers. So they can weave back and forth between many of those fields that we talked about: maternal and child health, epidemiology, biostatistics, community health, social and behavioral sciences, you name it, global health, international health. And sometimes, in many cases, it really pays to have that background as a clinician so you can understand a little bit more intricately how to, succeed and excel and evolve in a certain field. So this one is a really special position because of that ability to be sort of like a chameleon in the area. So, Akua, can you let the people know? Because remember, this is about helping people who are students who are thinking about getting their MPH or in the process of getting it, or people who are thinking of transitioning or just curious. So, what are the job sites for your profession? So, give us some examples of the places that you've been stationed as a traveling nurse, and of course, the most obvious is hospital, but there are different places where nurses can be. So, give us some insight to that.
Yes. So as you said, primarily I'm deployed to different hospitals, different levels of hospitals, trauma centers, and whatnot. But also you can be deployed to psych facilities. You can be deployed to clinics where they're giving out vaccines, such as what's happening now with the pandemic. A lot of clinics are doing vaccinations, so you will find many nurses there. I've been in skilled nursing facilities. I've also worked not as a travel nurse, but also we work in workers' compensation, all over the place. CVS, they work at CVS. Nurses are everywhere, and I've been to those places. Yes.
Give us an example of what happens at CVS. with nurses? Because
Well,
that's
they
your pharmacy, your everyday
yes, it's a pharmacy, but also they have nurse practitioners that work there for patients that need to be seen, who may not necessarily, may not have insurance and want to pay out of pocket, who may need to get a quick vaccine, who may just want a quick physical or get their blood pressure checked. So they have them stationed there as well. Yes.
Interesting. So, how did you become a travel nurse? Like, what was your career path? That's helpful to know
Uh,
for people who are starting out.
so I started in my nursing career. I started off in a skilled nursing facility, and I just decided that I wanted something a little more challenging. And so I eventually moved to working in a clinic, in family care and in pediatrics, and then when I went for my RN, decided that I wanted to get in, become a critical care nurse, ICU, and from there I wanted to move away from the politics, of being in a facility. And so I decided to go the travel nursing route, a little more autonomy in terms of what I wanted to do with my freedom. And then I didn't have to be committed to, a hospital for an extended period of time. And if I wanted to stay longer, then, I can contract to do that.
Right. When you say politics, are you speaking more of like the administrative side of nursing? Because like we've gone over this in the blog and on the previous videos. So make sure you check out the blog. Administration is definitely a part of everything. So I'm curious to know, when you say like the politics, are you talking about like, the administration and how maneuver, which is kind of, you know, not separate, but it's kind of like its own world, like outside of, that patient to clinician care.
So we certainly interact with those who are part of the administrative, but we function like staff, but we're not, an entity of the staff. So I don't know how to put it. We just don't have to be, we're there to make sure that we take care of the patient. We do follow the protocols, and guidelines, in terms of the care of the patient, but we're not married, to the
Got it.
hospital, so to speak.
As a travel nurse.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So I'm going to pause right here and just take time out to welcome our regulars. Greetings, Sister Manira, Shalom, Sovereign Eats. Thank you for joining us in the space. We're glad to have you. I have a set list of questions for our interviewee, but if there are questions from the audience, please feel free to ask, and we'll, try to make sure we fit them in. So, tell us about a day in the life of a travel nurse. Like there has to be like exciting things. Like we're coming off of a whirlwind year. So what was that like for you? Give us some deets.
Yes. Okay. So as a travel nurse, you kind of hit the ground running. Um, Typically we get it when we begin a contract, we maybe have a 1 or 2 day orientation, in terms of, their workflow. And then we go to the floor. We just, we get an orientation of this is, here, there, and the other. And then we just hit the ground running. And, and I kind of, I don't want to necessarily say I pride myself, but, that is the great thing about a travel nurse, is that they expect for us to, know what it is that we're doing,
Mhm.
and and treat any type of patient that they have, and that's what we're able to do. So we come in there and we just hit it. We hit it. It was very different in terms of managing COVID patients, because no one has ever had the experience of caring for patients with COVID. So the disease process was very different than patients that we had who maybe have had pneumonia or the flu. So that was definitely a learning experience for everyone. And I would like to also say that I would say it was really great teamwork between travel nurses and staffing. Um, and very supportive throughout the shift and working with patients in this pandemic.
Yeah.
But essentially got to hit the ground running.
Okay. Thank you. So hit the ground running. This is a day in life. It just sounds
Yes.
like nonstop movement.
nonstop multitasking. You know, you're working with families, you're working with doctors, you're working with, other nurses, you're working with other ancillary care members to ensure that the patient, gets treated, holistically. So
Yeah.
um, we have a lot of hats that we wear.
Yeah. Any memorable things that you experienced during your last tour or contract?
I would have to say again, was the nursing support, with this COVID pandemic. It was a very stressful, time for everyone. And the most memorable for me was the support that we did have, on the floor with one another. That was most memorable. And the compassion towards, the patients, wanting to fix them, wanting to see that they're, healed, and again, being supportive through the devastation, because it was something, really different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, May is Mental Health Month, so I'm gonna just take some time to say, like, willingly you're able to like step away and take some time for yourself and have like those mental health check moments, whether it be breathing, meditating, like, step outside for like a walk around the campus, um,
Yes.
step away. Um,
Yes.
that's
Yes. That was the beauty as well. They provided those things for us as well.
awesome. That's
Mhm.
So, what are some of the pros? I think you've kind of like talked about it, like when it comes to like the support. What are some of the pros of travel nursing, like in general, and maybe something that you wish you could implement or change?
Well, like I said, in terms of travel nursing, I appreciate the autonomy and the flexibility that we have. We don't have to, we're not married to the hospital, so we can kind of move about like we, as we'd like to. But also, I find that travel nurses, and all nurses, the advocacy that we need, we should have,
Yeah,
advocating for one another, advocating for contracts, that we get, advocating for certain equipment, especially during the pandemic, making sure that we have the equipment that we need.
yeah,
Um, and I could say that initially when it began, the issue in terms of the COVID was having the equipment that we needed. And there was a time that they wanted us to recycle our masks. So the nurses actually, rallied together, and we fought that like we should not be needing to, recycle these masks. So that was something that nurses really put their foot down about. And so you know, um, we were provided the proper mass in terms of supply, so we can change those. Another thing that, in terms of patients, is actually advocating for them, and in terms of them being patients being educated and knowledgeable about their disease process.
yeah. You just touched on, kind of what we talked about in the beginning. Like, it's a really good example of how clinicians are like crossovers within public health, that advocacy part. So, we definitely talk about like advocacy and policy being a public health field. And so sometimes it means that advocacy is like within the actual area, right? So the advocacy doesn't necessarily always have to reach this point where you're talking about advocating for public policy or legislation. It can be that internal advocacy, within your
Yes,
organization or the hospital or what have you.
yes,
Many different places have what we call like trade organizations where a lot of that advocacy happens in there. So that's amazing. So, final question. What advice do you have for aspiring public health students that maybe want to get into nursing or travel nursing?
well, for nurses, so I would say familiarize yourself, uh, with others. Well, what I mean is, get a mentor. Get a mentor, or someone that you can seek advice for. Seek advice with. Join some nursing organizations. Know where you want to specialize. In terms of nursing, and and also in terms of public health, get involved, because it does cross over, get involved, with public health. And then on the other side of that, those who want to get into public health, get involved with clinicians and nurses and see what they're talking about.
Mhm. Excellent. Well, I thank you so much. There's
Thank
not a
you for having me.
thank you for coming. You're my first guest. There's no questions from our audience, our watchers right now. However, as always, if you're catching this video after it's aired, please be sure to leave comments down below. And as always, I will get to them as I can. You can always remember to like, save, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell at the bottom. I don't know where it is. I think I'm reversed on this screen. Hit the bell at the bottom so you'll always be updated when new videos are available and coming live. And just a quick shout out.
Well,
Greetings.
there's a question.
Oh, we have some questions. Okay, so first question. Our first question is from Munira Baptiste. Do nurses always welcome you with open arms?
Not always. They don't always welcome us with open arms. The hospitals that are desperate for staffing, yes, they do. They're very appreciative. But then you have some hospitals where the nurses, are not pleased because what they're looking at, how they're viewing us is in terms of, the pay, and so they're not happy because we're coming in and we actually, our salary is a little greater than theirs. So, it just depends on the hospital and the need and the culture of, of that hospital.
Mm. The next question. Well, before I get into that, that's horrible. That's but follow up to that then. Clearly, it doesn't deter you from getting the job done.
Does not deter me at all. Listen, I'm a hit the ground running type of nurse. I know what I'm doing. And I just kind of feel like you can hate it or love it, but I'm here to help you. At the end of the day, your staffing is low. And your census is high. So I'm here for you, and you're going to dump on me, and I can take it, so I'm going to be taking good care of your patient. So, give me a
Right.
break.
Yeah, well, because the bottom line is the patient, right? And it's making sure
Yes.
that the patients are getting the care that they need,
Yes.
um, so they can go home to their families, right?
Yes.
Especially here, like last year. And I would think that people would be, appreciative of the help. But I guess, from the other point of view, I can understand that. At the same time, the end game is the patient. So.
It is.
So the next question is from Saberneets. How do you maintain balance through emotionally challenging experiences? That's a good question, right? We kind of hit on that like it's mental health month. So
Yes. Yes. And that is a good question. And that was something that I had to learn. It was very difficult for me to keep balance. But, um, over time, I just kind of learned how, to take the time, to make sure that I tend to myself, when I get off work or when I take, breaks. And then, I instituted little different modalities, aromatherapy, listening, I brought my little speaker with me, so that I can listen to calming music. So those are some things that I eventually did, but I had to learn to do. And then the hospital, they provided counseling, on-site counseling.
that's awesome.
Yeah, they provided pamphlets, or we had those little stress balls. They were just available to us if we needed to talk, if we needed to speak or talk. So yeah, there was some things. Those are the things that were available to us.
Okay. Follow up. Saberneets also says, also, what provisions have hospitals provided during the COVID pandemic to support and maintain nurses while on call? I think you kind of answered
Yeah.
that a little bit, but if there's anything more you'd like to add.
Yeah, I saw the question and I just,
Oh, okay.
answered to that. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, peace to Chief Yuya.
Oh, please, Chief.
Thank you for joining us. So we kind of went over a bunch of questions. You talked about like being on the floor, you know, some of the stresses, some of the pros. You know, advocacy is definitely a thing you wish you could implement and think that needs to be implemented a little bit more. Um, I think like, you know, that's it. I know sometimes, you know,
Okay.
people want like juicy details. You know, like, you know, what are
Yes.
stories from the ER, you know, like
Oh, I
our
mean, I had a story. So I'm not an ER nurse, but I have worked in the ER, and that's a different beast. That's a different kind of beast because you are getting all types of patients. You're getting psych patients. You're getting, and depending on the hospital, you're getting trauma patients. Um, you're getting patients from all walks of life. But the key is, again, as I've always said, is you hit the ground running. But it's high adrenaline because these patients are coming in, right, out of the field, and you're walking, you're running in there,
yeah.
to save a life. So there's some juicy stories. I don't want to get too much into them, but
Yes,
I
we don't want to break the roof.
yeah, yeah.
Don't
Well,
want
no,
to
I wouldn't break it, but I one experience was a burn patient, and I'd never seen a burn patient, and so I thought it was very interesting how the skin was falling off of the patient's arm. And the smell, and it's pretty morbid sounding, but it is kind of juicy at the same time. But those are the type of patients that you coming in, that you're going to be dealing with. So ICU patients as well. Managing different medications on a drip. Vasopressors, where you're managing the hemodynamics of the patient. Um, you're managing medication that's controlling the stroke of the heart.
yeah,
The contraction of the heart. How the vessels are gonna constrict, how you're managing all of that. Like if I um up this, then that means the patient's gonna, their vessels are gonna constrict, but we're bringing more blood to the core of the body. So a lot of dynamics that are going
yeah, yeah. What if someone says that? So we got a lot of chatter now. So, so Chief Yuya says emergency nurses are like parkour daredevils. You know, I only learned about parkour during COVID because I was just sitting around watching the internet like everybody else. And yeah, and so from what I understand about parkour, yes, because emergency medicine is unlike anything else. Like just like you said, like you gotta kind of know everything, and because the
on.
emergency rooms, it's like that's where everybody comes through the emergency room. So
Yes.
like life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what
Hmm.
you get.
Yes.
Like it's gonna be
Yes.
like
You get all kinds. You get all kinds, but that's the beauty of being an ICU nurse, because an ICU nurse can go over to the go to the side of the emergency, the ER side, because how critical a patient can be, but an ER nurse can't do that with ICU. So it's a little competition, about that. In terms of managing the care, but we can jump in there um for a lot of things. Let me what's another juicy. I know one time there was a patient, it wasn't ER, but we had a patient and their surgery went bad, and the doctor just came to the bedside and sliced the patient open, just kind of dug their, yeah, and I was like, oh, what in the world?
no
Yes.
anesthesia,
So, huh?
no anesthesia.
Well, she was sedated already, but I didn't expect that to happen. you
Wait,
know.
back up. Which back up. The surgery went, but you have to start
So
over
the patient had a surgery and she was bleeding
internally.
internally, and I was in a makeshift ICU room. It was not an ICU room, but we had to make it into an ICU room. And the doctor came to the bedside and opened this the surgical wound and dug his hand in to feel, to see what was happening, inside. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah. Juicy.
I'm like,
That's
let
what
me close my mouth. I'm like, dug his hand. You, yeah. See,
Yes. So I've
Yeah.
seen some things, that's the beauty of nursing overall,
Yeah.
that's the
That
beauty.
story makes me think of, like, all of the attention around like frontline workers, like it's why they should be appreciated. I don't know what I would be feeling if I dug my hand. It would all, I'm sure, feel like mush, and then I'd probably faint. Like,
Hmm.
oh, kudos to the doctor. And so did it work?
Well, I wasn't too happy because that's not what you're supposed to do. And yeah. And so, but no, I ended up actually that day, I ended up giving gobs and gobs of blood to the patient.
You
And
personally?
I had to hang like bags and bags of
Oh,
blood for this
oh,
patient. Excuse me, yes.
okay.
Because they were internally bleeding. So
Oh,
yeah. But you know what? I'm moving away from travel nursing, and I'm
you
gonna be
did
doing
talk about
something.
getting your degree.
Yes, so I'll be doing something, the beauty of nursing, it is pretty diverse, so I'm gonna move away from that, looking to get into case management and, some other things. So
Awesome. So
yes.
further down the line, we'll talk to you as a case management worker who also has an RN.
Yes. Hopefully, well, not hopefully, getting into leadership. So
Right. Yeah. And
yes.
that's a whole other beast, right?
Yes.
That's like a
Yes.
whole other animal, the ivory tower, the proverbial ivory tower. Sovereignty, so someone said stories. What about snake bites? Stories
Oh,
about snake bites?
yes. So I had one experience with a snake bite, and it was pretty interesting. Um, and just what was interesting was the disease process. But I'm sorry, it was so long ago. It wasn't that long, but I'm trying to recall. Snake bites, snake poison is that's devastating. But my patient, he had a snake bite, and it changed the coagulation of his blood. That's what I remember the most, is it changed the coagulation of his blood to like nearly like black. But it also kind of paralyzed, from that bite, and then it would move up. Um, and so what we had to do was give these inoculation shots, or I forgot what it was. I'm sorry, because of my first patient, but that care that I had to give to him it's pretty specialized, and it was my first time managing, a patient with a snake bite, and so it was constant monitoring.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so when it was black and it, like, is that what they call like necrosis? Like, was the tissue was dying around the wound?
No, it wasn't necrosis necessarily. It was his blood was like, when we drew his blood, it was like burgundy, it just it was just burgundy, and snake bites, the poison coagulates the blood, and so it turns dark when it coagulates.
I
So
see.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. So does
So
it
he
make
was
it
in
hard
danger.
to move through the body because it's now, is it sort of like thickening up the blood?
Yes, yes.
Ah,
It
oh,
thickens up the blood. So we had to have him on, a lot of fluids, and it was kind of touch and go, taking care of him, touch and go. He had moments where he felt good, and then he had moments where he was just, out of it. It was really touch and go, really
oh.
touch and go. Hmm.
Sounds like he made it, and that was
I
an
don't
experience.
know.
Oh
I don't
no.
know if he did, honestly. I mean, he wasn't intubated or anything, which was good, but you just have to, you based, the medication that you gave him was based on his, kind of like how he was responding. So if I gave him the, what is it? Anti-venom. Is that what it's called? Yeah, I think anti-venom, and he would feel better. And then if he had like an exacerbation, that's how gauge, giving him, the anti venom. So it was, again, touch and go. It was my first experience. Good experience. That's something I definitely would need to learn more about.
Okay. It seems like as a traveling nurse, you because you get exposed to a lot of things. Because I know
Yeah.
sometimes like nurses they do this thing, and so like
Yes.
but they got all that experience is maybe in the beginning when they were still learning about nursing, and then
Yes.
kind of settle into whatever their job is. Like that's what it is. It's like
Hmm.
I'm an oncological nurse, or
Yes.
yeah, nice to you, nurse. So
Yes.
but as a traveler, you get to do a lot of it. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
My first travel assignment was the open heart floor,
Oh,
and I was never an open heart nurse. So I had the opportunity to learn how to manage open heart patients too.
were you able to? Were you ever a surgical nurse, like a surgery nurse? The ceremony.
No, no, no. I have no clue about. Yeah, those are OR nurses,
Yeah.
circulating nurses. No, that's pretty specialized too, because with that one, you're getting all the equipment for the doctors, and you're maintaining sterility, and that's a whole nother beast as well, which I respect. So
Have you ever seen an open heart surgery?
I have not. I have
No.
not seen the open heart surgery, and I haven't had a fresh open heart patient. Maybe like post-op day one, because I didn't really work open heart, but never, no, never seen a open heart. I've seen a gallbladder be taken out before,
Oh
which
yeah.
is it's
Mm.
like to me, it wasn't nothing big.
That's the person who's seen a surgery. I don't know that many people have seen a surgery.
Hmm.
Outside of the television. I think
Yeah.
it live is a whole different beast.
Hmm.
So yeah. But thank you for sharing those
You're
stories.
welcome. Thank
Interesting.
you for having me.
People enjoy them and actually get to a chance to kind of see both sides. Because I think that was awesome. You gave like, a really honest opinion on like both sides, like pros and things you wish you could change, what like the fact that you're not going to that you're moving away to do something more than travel nursing and case management. So it also shows like that you can have progression in your
Hmm.
career even after you've kind of like been doing something for a little bit of time. So that's really helpful for those people who are like, I want a career change. So
Yeah.
there's some ways that you can think about like doing some of those and remember though like clinicians tend to be specialized, so
Hmm.
it doesn't mean like you just gonna say like, oh, I'm just gonna jump up being a doctor. No, no, no.
Right. I have
Just
no desire.
you have to like you have to go. Okay,
Hmm.
so thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your profession, your career, and being the first spotlight. um,
My pleasure.
thank you. And willingly, the viewers and the watchers got a lot of information out of it. And as I said before, leave your comments down below, and I'll be sure to get to you as I can. So, peace. Thank you. See you in the forward next Thursday, same time, 6 p.m.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.